All right, guys. So on this episode of how the left is trying to dumb down our children to make them permanent Democrat voters, right? I mean, that's my big conspiracy about why a lot of this stuff is happening. They really want students to be woke, social justice, Democrat Party voters. That's actually really what they want. They don't actually really want them to learn anything of substance in school, anything that's going to actually help them gain life skills and make some money, right? Otherwise, again, they wouldn't be Democrat Party voters. But on this episode of, again, how the left is trying to dumb down schools, right, in the name of equity and inclusion, we have a woke high school, a couple woke high schools here that are implementing race-based grading systems for the 2022-2023 school year, okay? Yes, they're trying to grade students based off race, okay, in which they are basically getting rid of certain criteria that teachers have used historically to assign kids grades in class, saying that, well, you know what, you might be targeting black students with some of the criteria and expectations that you have for your class, okay? Basically what they're saying in a nutshell is that because we're racist, okay, and that we don't think black people can achieve as much as everybody else, we have to lower the standards for everybody, and you can't deduct points from students based off behaviors that black students exhibit, right? That's what they're saying in a nutshell, okay? The race crusaders are actually the most racist people in our society, and I think that what's going on with this new race-based grading system is really going to highlight some of that stuff that I'm talking about. So without further ado, let's get into this, because this is insane. Oak Park and River Forest High School administrators will require teachers next year to adjust their classroom grading scales to account for the skin color or ethnicity of its students. School board members discussed the plan called, quote, Transformative Education, Professional Development, and Grading at a meeting on May 26, presented by Assistant Superintendent for Student Learning, Lori Forenza. In an effort to equalize test scores among racial groups, OPRF will order its teachers to exclude from their grading assessments variables it says disproportionately hurt the grades of black students. They can no longer be docked for missing class, misbehaving in school, or failing to turn in their assignments according to the plan. Okay, so I want you guys to understand here what they're saying, okay, without actually really saying it explicitly here. They're saying that behaviors that teachers use to dock points away from students, like missing class, misbehaving in school, or failing to turn in assignments on time, well, black students happen to do that the most. So therefore, you should not deduct points from them because of that. Okay, even though students who happen to exhibit these type of behaviors, for example, missing class or misbehaving in school or not turning in assignments on time, they're students that are probably most likely to have low scores anyways. They're probably not going to pass, right? They're probably not going to do well in school if that's what they're doing, okay? They don't have low grades because teachers are deducting points for them because they're missing class or misbehaving in school. That's not why they have low grades. They have low grades because that is what they're doing, because these activities means that they're not learning, which means they're not passing their tests, which means they're not doing good on their homework assignments, okay? But that's not how the wokes think, right? They want to dumb down everything for everybody else and then say, well, it's because of, black folks. We're just doing it for black people, which again makes us look bad, right? You make a whole lot of people have animosity against black folks because everybody's now thinking that, hey, we got lower standards for everybody else because you black folks are too dumb, right? You black people out here missing class, misbehaving in school, turning in assignments late, you're making it so everybody else has to stoop down to your level, right? Again, this is sad, okay? And this is embarrassing, and I wish these schools would not do this. Schools should not be lowering standards. They should actually be raising standards, okay? They should be raising standards. Quote, traditional grading practices perpetuate inequities and intensify the opportunity gap, reads a slide in the PowerPoint deck outlining its rationale and goals. It calls for what OPRF leaders describe as competency-based grading, eliminating zeros from the gradebook, encouraging and rewarding growth over time. Teachers are being instructed how to measure student growth while keeping the school leaders' political ideology in mind. Again, that's the most important part. Political ideology, the far left ideology. That's the most important part. Quote, teachers and administrators at OPRFHS will continue the process necessary to make grading improvements that reflect our core beliefs. The plan states promising to consistently integrate equitable assignment and grading practices into all academic and elective courses by fall 2023. According to the Illinois State Board of Education, 38% of OPRF sophomore students taking the Scholastic Aptitude Test, SAT, failed. The OPRF failure rate was 77% for Black students, 49% for Hispanics, 27% for Asians, and 25% for whites. Now, I guarantee you, okay, this failure rate is correlated with the rate in which these students, okay, by race, miss assignments, don't come to class, and misbehave. I guarantee you, right? This failure rate is not going to improve because you stop deducting points from students because they miss class or whatever. Because these standardized tests are exactly what they're called. They're standardized for a reason, which means that basically you either know it or you don't, right? You don't get graded on all the other stuff. It's about what you actually learn in class. And I guarantee you, these Black students, they're failing the most because of those behaviors like missing class, like missing school, like misbehaving. That is why they're failing. And the reason why they're exhibiting those behaviors is because of the environment that they have at home. Is because the parents have not instilled discipline and the values in them to go to school and to succeed, right? Which means you need to go to school and behave, turn in assignments on time, and learn. Again, this starts in the home, right? This starts in the home, okay? But again, they don't really want to address that because talking about that is racist, right? Talking about that is racist because I guarantee you, these white and these Asian students, I guarantee you, they probably have stable homes where they have two parents that are very concerned about what their kids are doing in school, and they make sure that if their kids go to school and they act up, that they're going to be thoroughly punished, right? There's zero tolerance for that type of stuff. But again, even for 27% and 25% failure rate, that still seems a little bit high. So maybe the school is just not a good school. I don't know. Advocates for so-called equity-based grading practices, which seek to raise the grade point averages of Black students and lower scores of high-achieving Asian, white, and Hispanic ones, say new grading criteria are necessary to further school district's mission of DEIJ, or diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Again, we're going to diversify, equify, include, and justice ourselves into having the dumbest generation of students that we've ever seen in our life, right? This is what's going to happen, okay? The dumbing down of America is real, okay? And it is a far left agenda meant to turn these students into far left woke activists and permanent voters of the Democrat Party. Nobody can convince me any different, okay? Because that is the only reason why you want to do something like this. I don't understand it. By training teachers to remove the non-academic factors from their grading practices and recognize when personal biases manifest, districts can proactively signal a clear commitment towards DEIJ, said Margaret Sullivan, Associate Director at the Education Advisory Board, which sells consulting services to colleges and universities. Sullivan calls grading based on traditional classroom testing and homework performance, quote, outdated practices, and fosters unconscious biases. Quote, teachers may unintentionally let non-academic factors like student behavior or whether a student showed up to virtual class interfere with their final evaluation of students. She said traditional student grades include non-academic criteria that do not reflect student learning gains, including participation and on-time homework submission. So, I mean, here's the thing. I don't necessarily think non-academic factors like, again, participation and on-time homework submission should be a very large part of your grade. But at the same time, I don't blame teachers who include it as a part of your grade. And the reason why is because you're supposed to be teaching life skills. Because when you go and get a job in the real world, you got to participate, right? You got to show up to work on time. You have to get assignments and projects done on time. And in the real world, if you don't perform and if you don't do your work on time, you're going to get fired. Right. And that is something that I think is a good idea to get students in the habit of doing this stuff on time, because that is the expectations that they're going to have when they go out into the real world. But see, schools nowadays are not geared towards preparing students for the real world anymore. Right. They're not trying to prepare students to go out here and get jobs, OK, to be able to perform and be productive citizens in society. Like I said, they're simply trying to prepare students to be woke activists. That's what they want. School districts across the U.S. are experimenting with getting rid of 0 to 100 point scales and other strategies to keep missed assignments from dramatically bringing down overall grades, according to a March Associated Press report. Quote, others are allowing students to retake tests and turn work in late. Also coming under scrutiny are extra credit assignments that can favor students with more advantages. Again, in the real world, you don't get a second try, right? If you mess up on a job, you might make a mistake that causes you to get fired, right? So why should you be able to retake tests and turn in homework late when, again, when you go out in the real world, you get a real job, you're not going to get that luxury. You're not going to get the luxury of being able to do that. You know, unfortunately, for a lot of things in life, you don't get a second chance. That should be reflected in school. The report interviewed science teacher Brad Beadle of Santa Clara, California, who said he has stopped giving zeros and deducting points for late work, as well as allowing students, quote, unlimited retakes for quizzes and tests. And I guarantee you, those students that are coming in late, that are missing class, that are not turning in work as well, I guarantee you they're still failing. I guarantee you they're still failing. Okay? Forensic called for a switch to race-based grading late August after issuing a report chronicling a spike in F grades by OPRF students in the 2020-21 school year. Again, ain't it funny how instead of addressing the problem of why students are getting Fs, which indicates that they're not learning anything, no. Let's not actually focus on them learning anything. Let's actually focus on adjusting how they're getting graded so that it looks better. But I guarantee you on standardized tests, their scores are not going to get better because they're not learning anything. OPRF's administration will adopt language that makes and keeps the system visible and continue to name racism as a complex, interconnected structure, she wrote. We must recognize the unique challenges faced during the pandemic, intensify the need for a systemic approach to confronting the racial and socioeconomic discrepancies often experienced by our underrepresented student population. Last year, West Coast News reported on an unadjusted grade point average scale implemented by OPRF teacher Fiona Hill, it lowered the score for F to 19%. Wow. So you have to get less than 19% of an assignment correct in order to get an F, in order to fail, right? I think fail used to be below 60%. Again, dumbing down education, man. Dumbing down academic standards in the name of equity and inclusion, man. It's embarrassing. And I hate the fact that these schools are doing this because, again, it really does make black people look stupid, right? It makes it look like that we can't compete with everybody else. So therefore, you know what? We got to dumb down everything else for everybody just because, you know, black people are too dumb to learn this stuff. It's embarrassing, man. It's absolutely embarrassing. We do not need to be lowering standards. We need to be raising standards. But again, they don't want to do that because, again, if you produce productive students and citizens in our society that go out here and get good jobs that aren't criminals, again, that's less Democrat Party voters, right? That's less woke revolutionaries. That's less woke activists. And that is in opposition to what the far left wants for this country. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.